I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time.
Dude, right back at you, man. I was watching your shit before I even started making content.
How long have you been making content?
Just like 2 years. I started in 2023. I'm like 2.5 years in now.
Why did you start?
I started because I was a GameStop investor and I thought I was going to be making content about the fucked up financial system. And then I realized I wasn't really smart enough to make that kind of content. Um, so I like rewound and was like, all right, let's start with some basic and just spiral from there.
Wait, so you don't think you're smart enough to make that other type of content?
I am now. At the time, not really. There's just like so much pre-gaming you have to do in order to be able to understand what's really going on with finances
Yeah.
that it was like, you know what, bro, maybe you shouldn't like cosplay as some nerd and you should just start with the basics, which was a great idea.
Yeah. What were you doing before you made content?
I was an ultra marathon running guide during the summers, and then I cooked for a long time, and during COVID I stopped cooking and I started driving Uber Eats. So I was just like doing odd jobs to make ends meet.
And then you just started doing social media kind of out of nowhere, it seems like.
Yeah, a little bit. I did about a year, a little less than a year of trying to do like an outdoor adventure and fitness kind of content niche, which was cool. But as well, your niche, at least you can like make gym content, you can make like low key content, you can make lifestyle stuff.
Yeah.
But I was more in this like outdoor adventure running like mountains kind of content where it's like fucking every video you want to make, you got to go like 3 days into the mountains and like do some crazy for it's like, man, that is not a good business model at all.
Yeah.
Plus it makes all your fun time into your job, which sucks.
Yeah, I've had that challenge for sure with just maintaining the fitness thing that I do. So you got heavy into it, I guess most people would call it what, conspiratorial content?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I don't shy away from it. It's like conspiracy theories are fun, man.
Well, it's always funny when it's like they always end up eventually being true. That's the funny
Yeah,
part.
exactly, right? It's
What
just like we all know it at this point too. It's not like it's a secret.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, man, where we're at right now.
Yeah, it's like the degradation of truth. Like not only do we all have zero trust in our government and all the institutions that are supposed to be, you know, looking after us, that are supposed to be like our whole society, but it's also like no one trusts what's real anymore and everyone has their own truth depending on who you watch and what you see and what your fucking algorithm feeds you.
Yeah.
It's pretty whack.
Do you think this is going to get better or worse? And there's a few other topics.
Worse.
Obviously, I want to. Yeah, there's a
It's
few
gonna
other
get
things I want to
worse,
hit
dude.
on. Yeah, but
Yeah, no, it's definitely feels like it's going to get worse. It's I think that people are over it. I think that if we weren't being fed like so much bull from above, from corporations and from our government and from people that want to start wars, I think that people are ready to get better. I think that people are over the corruption and over all the conspiracies, but I think we're kind of along for the ride at this point.
yeah, but it don't you think we kind of have always been?
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. I think we might kind of ebb and flow a little bit, like as each generation grows up. I think every generation sort of has its moment of like, oh, that's all fake. There was like the 9/11 generation, and everyone kind of figured that out. But then we had a while until like 2008 generation. Everyone's like, wow, that's bullshit. And then all the kids growing up now just had COVID, and they're like, wow, okay, guys.
Yeah,
So it's like, you know, each generation kind of has to go through a bit of a trial by fire, I think, to really, because like it's one thing to learn in a book and like to read about something. It's a whole different thing to have your own government locking you down and closing down your family's business and like telling you that you're like not allowed to go to the gym for your own health. It's
yeah,
like,
oh yeah,
okay,
I remember that.
okay,
That's
bitch.
that's what started me on the like, all right, this is not right.
Yeah,
Sort of
that's what
path.
started my like real red pilling.
But it feels like regardless though, it's always been that way. It's just there was less mediums for people to be sort of controlled or brainwashed. And now there's like this
Totally.
supercharged steroid version of brainwashing and it's social media.
Yeah, well, now it's all individually targeted, right? Because like we both come from a generation where like we remember what it's like before algorithms and your phone and all this where but like they just controlled all the media at that point. They controlled every TV station. They like the bankers, the kind of the big power boys, the corporations, the government, they like had it all locked down. And then you can kind of when you actually do the research into the like each social media app's rise, you can kind of actually trace the American government and like our deep states uh attempts to take over each one individually. Like YouTube, for example, there was this era of this wild west on YouTube where like anything goes, like where people were just posting any whatever they wanted on YouTube, and it was like independent, and it was just this total free for all. And then at a certain point, the government's kind of like, oh, this is not like, that's fucked up, dude. If they can just post anything they want, we're in trouble. So Google buys YouTube, right? And then like Facebook, it's obviously was controlled from the start. Twitter had its little moment of like it was very controlled, but then Elon kind of broke that open. We got to see how big of a difference it is when you have one of these big social media platforms where there is free speech versus when it's censored. It completely changes the world. And TikTok is going through that right now. TikTok is going down the.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that they seem like they come to some agreement now where they're going to buy it, I guess, from ByteDance, and it's going to.
Yup.
We already know what that's going to look like.
Yup. The IDF is moving in.
It's crazy though, man. Why do you think Elon avoids the whole conspiracy theory, we'll call it right here, of the Jewish stuff, the Israel
Dude,
stuff?
I mean, he has to. Is like when you're that high up and you have that many government contracts and you're playing with like, and this is something you probably see in like the industries you swim in too, where you get to a certain level of like interacting with high status individuals. And there's just a lot of like deals on the table all the time. There's a lot of like kind of political wheeling and dealing, even when you're not trying to like, score a clothing deal or like score some collaboration. You're just trying to exist. But you're like in this room full of all these very powerful people, and you realize that like that dude's like got interest in that, and that guy's got contracts for that, and like these people all have this money, and there's just all this stuff that those people have to consider. And Elon's whole like every one of his companies relies on government contracts. He's definitely read in on secrets that he can't talk about. So he just like he's done more than enough by opening up X and maintaining free speech and holding the line despite his Auschwitz tour and his like little yarmulke shame session and everything. He's done a good job of holding the line on free speech. And
Yeah.
I don't blame him whatsoever for like not engaging in the conversation.
Yeah.
Although there was one time where he asked, like I responded to him. He posted some Israeli propaganda, and I was like, dude, you're kind of dumb. And he responded of like, what am I missing? And I like wrote this whole essay and ratioed him like hundreds of thousands of likes to 2,000 likes or something like that. And it like blew up on the internet. And it kind of almost felt like he was like purposely like setting the stage of like, hey, why don't you tell my whole audience about the Israel thing real quick?
Oh, that's the meme. That's the meme with
Yeah, that's the meme where there's
yeah.
hey, explain the Jew thing to me. And then it just is a fucking essay. Yeah.
The
I
thing
gave him
that's
the essay.
the thing that's frustrating about that whole conversation is like, I guess when people have it, it like sort of alienates all the Jewish people that aren't like in this cabal of people that are controlling these things or these industries. So it kind of like makes
people.
it makes it a weird conversation. But I think overall it feels like we've gotten to a point where we're not so far removed from that conversation now where like it should just be able to be had. Like there's too many clear sort of indicators. Like, I mean, all the stuff that's happening where like current day, I don't know if you saw recently, but like that Cash Patel guy was talking, I don't know, it was like a Senate guy. He's having this conversation about, and I want to talk, this is one of the things I want to talk to you about bots and about like, truth on the internet and all this kind of stuff. And we need to like crack down on this. And
that's where they're going.
Yeah. And this is the scary part because it really does feel like forget left, forget right. It's the same body. It's just like right hand does things a little bit differently. Left hand does things a little bit different. Like depending on sort of what public opinion is saying, they'll kind of move things a little bit differently. But it's the same body going in the same direction. And it feels like we're getting closer, marching down that line of like, our government is trying to get a hold on what you can truly say or not say. And then we'll get into the Kimmel conversation. But this one specifically was interesting because he was like, he was talking about anti-Semitism specifically, and then he was kind of relating it to Cash Patel in regards to like, there's this whole conspiracy about his girlfriend being like a Mossad agent and all this stuff. He's like, even you deal with it. And I don't know enough about all these things, but I see the lining of like, oh, they're trying to get closer to this like well, we need to control certain sort of speech because it's Russia bots or it's China bots.
Yup.
Where does that go? Because it truly feels like it's going to go to a thing where they're just going to be able to stop you, or they were talking about this whole passport thing to take people's
Yeah,
passports
dude.
away from criticizing Israel. And
Yeah,
I'm
an
like,
American citizen.
you can criticize another. You can't criticize another government, but you can criticize our government. But if you criticize that government, then like we're gonna take you out of here.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it's a very obvious track, and this is something that like the deep conspiracy theorists have been ringing the alarm on for like 8 years now and more, because it's been the holy grail of like the intelligence agencies, the CIA, the Mossad, all of these guys, the technocrats, like the tech CEOs. They've been dreaming about this for forever because when you can control speech, you can subdue the public. Like you no longer need to win an election if you can just stop everyone from speaking about the other side of an argument. If you can stop people from saying hateful things, it's pretty easy to lock down the whole thing and the empire is yours. And it's not hard. Like there's all these technicals of like, the specifics of that conspiracy or the specifics of that story that like most people don't have time to research into. But like you don't have to be fucking informed about all these facts in order to just see it as like for what it is. It's like that's clearly the most anti-American thing I could ever imagine. It's the First Amendment for a reason.
Yeah.
And like the goal is with the bots conversation, because it'd be one thing for them to just try to keep going the anti-Semitic route, which is like appealing to like it's like hurtful to our feelings or it's like dangerous ideologically. But the bot thing is actually the goal is to try to be able to label people that are speaking up as terrorists. Because if you can label someone as a terrorist, you're not even an American. You might be paid by Qatar. You might be like, right? Suddenly sky's the limit. Like I can be labeled as a terrorist because I'm saying things that are actually with the bots and it's like fuck,
Yeah.
that is a dark future.
Yeah.
And it's paired with like Peter Thiel and Larry Ellison and all these like ultra billionaire tech guys that are super sketchy, that their whole companies are about surveilling everyone all the time. And they're very open about talking about wanting to mass surveil everyone all the time. Like pretty soon, because we kind of have this meme in our heads as Americans that like the government's already always watching, that the CIA is like in your computer right now. And they are if they want to be, but they don't have like the data and the AI capability yet to actually watch us all the time. But that's what they're working on right now. And that's what all these data centers going up are going to start to give them the capability, is to like watch more and more people more and more of the time with more and more cameras in public and in your devices and all that. And it's like that gets pretty dark pretty fast.
Yeah. Do you think it's an inevitable?
Yeah, I do, unfortunately. And I try to always see the other side of an argument, even one like this, where it's like the other side is the government's version of the argument.
Yeah.
Because the problem is that they always sell you these things. They sell you the solution. Usually it's to a problem they created. And they'll sell you a solution that like is a solution. But in this case, it's a trade-off, right? Is an easier example to understand is self-driving cars. Driving cars is sick, but it's like the most dangerous thing that Americans do every day. It's the most dangerous thing in our lives. And self-driving cars don't really crash. And pretty soon they're going to crash zero. So how many years is it before we have a bill being introduced in our government to outlaw driving? Because like last year, 50,000 people were killed by human drivers. And like, look at Emily. Emily died because a human got behind the wheel. And it's like, do you give up the freedom of driving yourself so that we have no traffic accidents? It's like, that's actually an argument that you can make. Personally, you can I want to drive my car, and be able to travel and be able to like get in my car and drive to where I want to be. It's like, that's a big part of freedom. And when you take that to like speech in general, and when you take that to all of our actions, it's like, we're looking like China pretty fast. Like, I don't need a social credit score.
Yeah.
My social credit score would fucking suck.
Yeah. It'd be like we'd be trying to do this podcast and it would just end. It would just cut. It'd be like
your screen time is over for the day, Ian. That's enough research for you.
Yeah, man. It's a scary conversation because, like, again, whether we talk about specifics of it, like you said, you don't have to be like into sort of deep conspiracies. Like you can just see surface level and go,
yeah,
oh, that sounds terrible. And I'm just like, if there's no way around it, then what does the future look like? Is it just looks like exactly what you're describing, where you could rationalize sort of anything for the greater good, but in reality, it's just kind of for the, the powers that are.
Yep. I mean, the way I look at it is like we're never going to save the world. It's always going to, like, all of humanity is always just this like push and pull between horrible ideas and good ideas. And sometimes, the smart people are like numerous and they're mostly like, we're running with good ideas in society. And then there's whole periods of history where it's just horrible. And it kind of comes down to who's in charge of the progress, I think, because there's a good argument to be made that like we want some controls on the internet, in the sense that like right now, regular old people can like turn photos of their ex into fake AI porn of their ex and like spread it on the internet and it'll look like that. And that's like messed up. You can make fake AI videos of like Elon Musk selling some new crypto coin and scam a bunch of people. You can do all sorts that like we don't want happening. You don't want, like, the part of the dismantling of truth is the fact that everyone's on Twitter just spouting lies. And like none of us are, like, I'm guilty of that occasionally, is getting things wrong. But it's like, do we give up the right for the real humans on here to speculate and to tell jokes and to have ideas just for like this theoretical truth? It's just this, all these trade-offs between freedom and comfort, or like freedom and safety. And
Yeah.
I'm personally, I think that most people, as they grow up, they get more freedom minded. And I definitely think that men and women, when you get stronger, when you get healthy, when you take care of yourself, when you're like fit, you become much more freedom minded because you can take care of yourself and you don't need some government to hold your hand through everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's funny how many people at least I've known in the fitness space that have come out and they lean a little bit more towards the right, because I think it's
Yeah.
for the most part more freedom minded. But now currently, right, you see this whole Jimmy Kimmel thing. What's your take on that? Because it feels like it's like the same thing in reverse, where the same
It
people
is,
who were once
dude.
championing free speech were like, well, but here though we don't like it, and then it gets weirder though if like a government agency gets involved and sort of puts pressure on a
Super.
that's when you're like, all right, where do we go with this? Like, again, like I said earlier, it's this two different hands, the same body going in the same direction. Because
Exactly.
we can't say, oh, it's okay here, but it's not okay there. The same people who are arguing for it not being okay there are saying it's okay here. Now we're just like, what are you guys doing?
Short-sighted thinking. Everything that the government does, imagine the other party doing it. Imagine, like, if it's your team and you're winning, like, imagine when it's not your team next time, because if you do it once, they'll do it again. And it's so much hypocrisy. All these people that are cheering on what's happening to Jimmy Kimmel. And like, I get their rage. I get like the want to have revenge, so to speak. But like, man, free speech is free speech. And if you're for free speech, you've got to be all the way for free speech. You don't need freedom of speech for speech that you like. The whole point of freedom of speech is for hate speech. It's for like dangerous speech. It's for the edgy, and it's for the that pisses you off. That's like the point. And if you flip the scenario and you don't like it, you're doing the wrong thing. Because I mean, all you have to do is look at the last 4 years of history. You don't have to go back that far to look at the Biden presidency, look at the Trump presidency, and a lot of the things that it's just like you're saying, dude, is like you cheered it on last time and now you're crying, or you were crying last time and now you're cheering. It's like you're retarded.
Yeah.
That's that's not how that works.
Yeah, that's even how I kind of felt about the whole the Charlie thing's a little different, because people were trying to, and this is a we'll get into this conversation too, but it kind of felt the same with it. People who were cheering on the Charlie thing and his death is like, wait, like you could flip this whole scenario and it could be some sort of creator that you like that was speaking about the things that you like, that now someone's
Yeah.
celebrating because it's the inverse. I didn't get it, man.
No, it's so tragic. Like, and there's the element of hypocrisy, like the intellectual piece of like these people not getting that when you flip it, you would be crying bloody murder. Like the left literally burned down every major city in America because George Floyd got killed. And that's a whole other can of worms. But now we're cheering, like, but there's this piece that's deeper than the intellectual there, of just like, bro, are you not a human being? Like, have some fucking decency. Like, that's a father. That's a husband, dude. Like,
Yeah.
come
Well,
on.
then the conversation will be like, well, they'll say, well, Charlie cheered it on in this category here, and so now it's okay there. And so it gets weird, because for me, when I look at it from the
Yeah.
outside, because I don't agree with everyone's takes all the time, Charlie's takes or whoever's takes. I don't agree with everything,
Yeah.
but the simple fact that the same people will say, you know, um, the problem here that's existing, like for example, the Israel Palestine thing, like the reason why that's happening is because you have a whole group of people who believe opposite of what someone else believes, and they're persecuting and killing these people for that, essentially to remove them from like a sort of, you know, from their state, from their own statehood.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so it's a weird conversation to me when the same people who champion the idea of we should protect those people because they're getting persecuted for what they believe differently than the other group of people. But when it happens to this guy, we're going to cheer it on in sort of like this
Yep.
snarky, like, well, he said things against them. So now it's happening. It's just like, are you not getting like everything
Yeah.
in history, if you look at it, the persecution of certain groups of people comes back to like the belief that the other side was like, well, I don't like what they're saying or what they believe or their ideologies or their religion. And so now we're going to hurt them or we're going to harm them. And so it's like, you have to pick, you don't have to pick like this side or that side, but you do have to pick, this is wrong, period. Like this
Bingo.
idea is wrong, period. And that's the thing that I don't get. And then it goes to this other deeper level of like the way that the internet has become this sort of clip culture of like, you don't even know the thing. Like I had this conversation with my mom, and this is the thing that really got me hot about it. My mom is like, this is like a little, I'll just tell you this whole story, but my mom's having this conversation with someone else in the family who's a little bit more right sided, and they're sort of defending Charlie. And I'm talking to her, and she's like, well, I didn't like some of the things he said. And I'm like, hold on a second. How much content, like how much of Charlie's content have you, and I had to get to this question. Have you ever heard Charlie Kirk's name before this?
Boom.
And she goes, well, no. And then I go, okay, so everything you heard about Charlie Kirk and what he said is in some sort of like funnel of, you know, because she comes from that side of media overall, it's a little more left and liberal, fair. But she's hearing everything from that perspective. And I'm like, so all you know of this person is like the sort of tidbits that they've given you to sort of sway you in their opinion. And then now you have this conversation and you didn't actually know what this person said. There's no context. There's just like these written, because I even Googled some stuff and I see like I don't know if it's an MSNBC article, but it's just like all the quotes of the bad things he said. And I'm like, I go to look at him and I look at the context and I'm like, but he is talking about like, whether it's like affirmative action or DEI stuff. And then they pull out this thing like, or he says stuff about black women or a black pilot. And it's like, well, there was context there that like, we're just completely leaving out. So that's when this gets really dangerous, because people don't actually go and look at stuff. They just go, well, I listened to this person who said this about that guy and they didn't like him, so I don't like him. And like, we're just falling in line of like wherever. And that's when it gets really scary.
I completely agree. And I think Gen Z is smarter than that shit. I think that that's like an artifact of like a lot of these older folk growing up in this time when you trusted where the information was coming from. Like, I think that like older generations are more used to being like, the newsman wouldn't lie to me. But Gen Z and below, dude, like the young people growing up today, they grew up in this environment. And I think they're more aware of the way that like this, it's almost like online beefs and online gossips train you to just like go watch the stream, bro. Go see what he actually said. Like, go get in actually in the chat and see what's going on. Because they play on this, like on everyone's ignorance so that they can caricaturize people, so they can smear people. This gets done to me all the time, where they'll try to tell you who someone else is and get you to, and rather than go and actually just find out who they are by listening to them, they'll try to keep you in their little spot where they just kind of tell you everything. But there's another piece of it where like culturally, we're all trained to have so much ego to think that like, you know, everything, like to think that you are so sure that you're right, that you're willing to like essentially condemn someone else to death because they're wrong. It's like, if you're going to say that Charlie's ideas were so wrong that he deserved to die, then that's like saying that you're so sure that you're right, that you have the power to execute someone without a trial, essentially.
I mean, it's insane, because like we said, the thing could flip at any moment, where you're also then just saying that if you disagree with someone, then not that they have the right to die because you disagree with them like straight out, but you're okay and you're allowing or you're vindicating the death of someone because so then it's like that concept at any moment could flip, where let's say the masses over here all believe this, but you believe that. and then that guy dies, and then you're like, whoa, this is wrong. And they're all saying, no, it's right for these reasons or whatever it is. It's how can you not see that side of it? That's the thing that I don't get, how people can't zoom out and go, wait a minute. Let's
Bingo.
look at this
And
whole
when you
thing.
zoom out, you realize like, oh fuck, dude, they're just getting all the peasants to fight each other while they just make billions and billions of dollars like all the rest of history. Holy shit. It's like so obviously the playbook by the corporate banking class that has just been playing games with our lives for our entire lives. That I really hope that we get over this right left fighting and like zoom out and realize that we're getting played. And when you look at the messaging that's coming in from the mainstream news and from a lot of the politicians and just everyone in the club, the messaging is clearly like slanted and carefully crafted to make us all want to fight and to stoke that blaming and that divide and that sort of like callous perspective on each other of like, if you're different than me, you're evil. And it kind of circles around this like this awakening I think that we're all kind of having, like back to what you were saying about the Jewish conversation and the Israel conversation, is like that shouldn't be awkward. Like maybe a little bit, but it shouldn't be like 500 times as awkward as any other conversation unless it's filled with this thinking of you are the ideas you discuss. And if you talk to someone bad, then you're bad. And if you talk about something bad, then you're bad. And if you think about an idea, then you must believe it. And so you're an evil person, right? When it's like, bitch, like I'm allowed to think about an idea that's bad. Like I'm allowed to think about Nazi Germany. Like, have you ever been to history class? Like I'm allowed to think about evil things that our government has done. That doesn't mean that that doesn't make you an evil person. And trying to have a conversation about like what's right and wrong and like how do you proceed through a difficult like thing, that's how you get better at like that's how you build society. That's how humans do shit. And there's this weird like social outlawing of talking about ideas, because then you smear people. It's like, oh, you talked to a bad person, you talked about a bad idea, that's a dangerous idea. It's like, it's interesting because smart.
The Jewish thing had been that forever. It had been one of those things forever. I remember when I first got into any sort of media, it was like, oh, don't talk about that.
Yeah, especially on the West Coast, on the Hollywood side, dude. It's real. And like, it's understandable too. Like if you put yourself in the shoes of Jewish people where it's like, you know, they've been through a lot of cultural hardship, like personal hardship to their families, and they know these stories about like how bad it can go. And there's this like nationalist identity amongst Jewish people around the world. And so it's like, it's understandable that it would feel, especially when the conversation has like been so taboo for so long, that you're not used to hearing criticisms of like Jewish terrorists over in the Middle East. And so it's easy to hear that and be like, oh my gosh, are you talking about me? Like fucking, I'm not a terrorist. Like you hate all Jews? And it's like, no, dude, not at all. I'm talking about those guys over there. I'm talking about that government of that country over there that's bombing people. Like I'm not talking about you. Just like when I criticize the CIA, it's like, I'm not talking about like Bradley Martin's evil because he's white and the CIA is a white organization. It's like, what the fuck is that? It's like, no one would ever think that. Right. But it's easier to make that leap with Jewish people because Jewish people are this like kind of unique ethnic group that is in the minority kind of everywhere they go. You know, my take is that founding Israel was a mistake because it leads to this way of blaming. Like it makes it easy to like connect Israel to all Jewish people. And then all Jewish people have to like answer for whatever Israel decides to do. And, you know, I would never want to have to answer for what my government does. That's not good. Because government suck.
You know, the takes on like because like Nick Fuentes is a good example for me that I wanted to do the interview with Nick for quite a while, and
props for doing that too, dude.
I avoided it for a while because I would have conversations within the industry. People would be like, I don't know about that guy. Don't talk to that guy. And I'm just always like, and then I will watch a lot more of his stuff, and I was like, well, there's a lot of stuff that he says that is like it's accurate, like, and so you have this weird moment where, you know, as a content creator, as someone who like even speaks about any of this stuff, like I'm afraid of having a conversation,
right?
And forget everything and all the opinions. And I'm like, that's wrong. Like I know that in my heart, I know that that's wrong. Now it'd be different if he got on here and was like, yo, we should just like murder these people or hurt these people. But like at no point
that's not what he's saying.
Ever.
Yeah.
And then you get you get all the Fed allegations and like, I'm sure you got the Fed allegations.
Oh yeah. 100%, dude.
So
Well,
so
that's the thing is that one of the strategies that's worked the best in this new media environment, and it worked in the old media environment too, but they've tried to bring it over to control the new media and it's this like smear tactic where they'll like pin a scandal on someone. Like Alex Jones is the best example of this, where Alex Jones became the Sandy Hook guy. It's like
yeah,
you harass those families, you evil man, and then they like every single news article that ever gets written about Alex Jones after that is Alex Jones, the unhinged conspiracy theorist that blames Sandy Hook families for being fake. And then they tell you the article. So they get this framing so that they can kind of like ostracize people and make them an evil other outsider. And they did that to Nick for years and years and years. And it's starting to crack because everyone, I think it's these younger generations growing up into the like public square, and they're not with it. They're like, bro, like I saw the stream. Like I was in there. Like I use the internet. I know how this works. I know what they actually said. And it's like though that dam is breaking and they can't just keep smearing everybody. Because I think we're also just so tired of it. It's like when I grew up liberal in a very liberal town like Northwest Washington. And
yeah,
and when you live in a town, like if you're like in LA during COVID, I bet a lot of people on that West Coast during COVID had this experience. If you're like kind of thinking a little bit, but you're surrounded by people that are like, whoa, don't say that. Don't think that. That's not good. That's racist. It's just like really tiring. It's so boring after a while. It's like, so we're not going to have any like full thoughts. I have to like cut the front and back off of every thought to make sure that I'm being politically correct. It's like, come on. And I think that you do that for enough years to people and their spirit just eventually is like, no, I'm over it. I'm gonna talk with my buddies like a real human.
yeah.
And I just don't think you can kind of maintain that level of thought control for very long. And I think that's what the big boys are kind of learning right now.
Yeah, but then it gets scary. What we said earlier is like when it gets to the point of not the not the China communist social credit score, but the Palantir, the control,
Yeah.
the getting closer to this can't say this speech, that speech. Are we not getting to where they can then just actually have that real control?
Oh yeah, we absolutely are. And we're getting to a point where like there will probably be a point of no return where like this is just hypothetical
Yeah,
CIA, just so you know CIA, but like if you wanted to overthrow the government, that would still be possible right now or like in the last 100 years, 200 years. If they got all tyrannical on us and like we're trying to lock everyone down again and people weren't having it, that would be possible. But if you look 10 years in the future, 20 years in the future, 40 years in the future, and like AI is governing everything and you can't drive your car anymore and guns are outlawed and speech is all monitored on the internet. And if you say something bad on Twitter about the Jews or they'll just, doop, your account's gone. It's like there's a point beyond which the technology is too powerful and we're all too poor and small where like what are we going to do? Like, so it really matters who is in charge right now and what direction we all go as a people and sort of the values that we all instill about freedom. Because if we start giving up too many freedoms right now, they're never coming back. Never.
yeah.
And AI is like a whole other crazy runaway train that I don't know if we're going to survive, even if we do it right. So I really hope we don't do it all wrong.
That's where I'm tied up right now, right? Because
Who the fuck is in charge?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it matters who's
Who's
in
really in
charge.
charge out here?
So that's the question, right? Like from what I felt, and I think what a lot of people felt going into this new Trump presidency, that this would be the difference, right? But
Yeah.
then you get in here and you see not so much has changed in a lot of ways. Some ways it's changed and makes people more comfortable. I'd say about like the gender ideology stuff. They kind of put a little bit of that sort of, not like it's gone, but didn't have it as much in our faces with like the
Yeah.
men out of women's sports and all this stuff. And we're all like, yes, for that. But a lot of other stuff, like I can't but help remember and really think and watching Donald Trump on Joe Rogan saying we're going to release these Epstein files and these are all these files and they're there and I think we'll do it, but like maybe it hurts some people's feelings. To go to like it's not real to it's a hoax to
Bro.
he was an informant to, and I'm just like, bro, I don't- like for them to be so smart and to be so like the game, not just ahead of the game, but the game. I'm like, what? How did we end up here though?
100%, dude. You could even go further back to like 2016 Trump on stage in the debate where he's debating Jeb Bush and he's like, these guys in the audience are all donors and they're booing because I don't take their money and I don't want their money. I don't need their money. I'm not going to take their money. And now it's like everyone give me money, and whoever gives me the most money, I work for you. And it's like, man, I did not vote for, I mean, I did vote for Trump because I also had the hope that like maybe this coalition that he's bringing together is like, maybe they're actually going to do stuff. Because you're right. It's like, who is really in charge? Is Trump really in charge right now? Like, in some ways, yeah, probably, but it doesn't feel like he's really all that in charge because I think that we all kind of before Trump came along back in like the 2012, 2016 era, I think a lot of people were starting to wake up to like, this is all bullshit. It's all controlled. Like Obama worked for the banks, Bush worked for the banks, Clinton worked for the banks. They all work for the banks. But then Trump was like an outsider, and we thought like, okay, this guy will shake things up. But I think that we're all starting to realize that like, man, the club is like way more ingrained than we realized. And even if like, I think there's a good argument to be made that some of the people around Trump are like really there to try to make change. Um, and I think that Trump wants to, be remembered in a good light. But for all the compromising he's doing, all the bullshit he's like peddling, I think the right and the left are all starting to wake up to like, oh, that's not the actual game. It's the bottom versus the top.
Yeah.
When it really comes down to it. And it's been that way forever. And the Epstein files is the perfect example of that. Ultimately, Epstein was a creation of the billionaire class to target the billionaire class, to rule over and control the billionaire class. And that industry, like just because Epstein went down doesn't mean that human trafficking went down. It's like you pop one drug dealer. What does the drug trafficking industry do? They just start selling the drugs in a different house. Like it's not like popping one drug dealer took down the drug industry. And so like all those dudes that were, utilizing Epstein's services, I guarantee you they're still getting their rocks off. They just have a new guy to go to. Nothing about that changes overnight just because you get one little dude. And so it's like, that issue specifically is one where the right and the left are implicated. Everyone's involved. They're all covering for each other. We all know it as the normal people in this world. And we all know that like on a certain level, there's no argument against it. There's no coming back from that. There's no excuse for hurting children,
Yeah.
specifically in that way, especially. And so it's just like such an obvious embodiment of the evil that kind of grows in a system this corrupt. And man, it was a nice time when we were all naive enough to think that, a billionaire would expose the Epstein files.
Yeah. I see that clip of Kash Patel on the hearing being like, yeah, with the information we have, he essentially just trafficked it to himself. I'm like, it's like you can't even answer the question truthfully because you like, well, you are answering it truthfully, but in a way that's very, very pointed. Because
Well,
obviously,
actually, he's not. He's actually lying on the stand there because the thing about a case as complicated as Epstein is that there's so much more than a regular person could ever kind of intake. But like we already have way more than enough information publicly available, fully documented, completely verified about Epstein to arrest all kinds of people for their involvement. And we have very clear evidence that you could convict someone in a court of law on about trafficking girls to other people. And just one example is Jess Staley, the banker that was in charge of the entire division of JP Morgan that deals with rich people and sets up their private accounts. So it's like he's the guy that Epstein goes to when he wants to set up secret bank accounts in the Cayman Islands or, move all of his money around the world and stuff. And he runs, they basically run all the rich people's accounts. And his name is Jess Staley. And he made really good friends with Epstein, and he was in charge of all of Epstein's accounts, and he was in charge of all the billionaires that Epstein was referring to JP Morgan. And there's all these emails that came out when they were investigating JP Morgan for their involvement with Epstein's money because they were his bank. And in those emails, Jess Staley wrote all kinds of crazy shit. Like he wrote this email in Jeffrey Epstein's hot tub on the island. Well, Jeffrey Epstein was in jail. Jess Staley, this banker at JP Morgan, is in his hot tub texting him like, man, I miss you so much. This island is so special. You're the best friend I've ever had. I've never had any friendships so profound, which is like, okay, maybe that's just friendship. But then he also messaged him things like, that was fun. Say hi to Snow White for me. That's a direct quote. Say hi to Snow White for me. And then Epstein messaged back, who do you want next? And then Jess Staley writes back, Beauty and the Beast. So it's like, do you think he's talking about? Um,
Yeah.
right? And that's just one example. Like you could go to Bill Gates, you could go to Bill Clinton, you could go to all these dudes uh that clearly like we know. And so Cash comes out and he says, based on everything that we know, there's nothing here. And it's like the FBI's job is not to read a book that you were handed and tell us what it says. The FBI's job is to go out and investigate and write the book and like go and solve the case. And there's loose ends all over the place, all over America, all around the world. Like I could hand Cash Patel a list of 10 people right now that if he went and asked them questions, he'd take the whole network down because they're all just walking free.
So you think they're just willfully avoiding it? Because
Absolutely.
the thing that you're talking about is not just some shit that you made up, but like how are you
No.
verifying that information?
So such a good question. The best place to verify information is to get to all the way to the primary source, meaning like where the information came from. And so in this instance, a lot of that is court documents. And you know, you can lie in court, but there's all these layers of like under oath and cross-examination of evidence, and you know, the whole process of a trial is designed to ascertain the truth. So court documents are a great primary source to use. And like the Jess Staley stuff that I just said as example, that's all in court documents from when JP Morgan was in court because the Bahamas was suing them. Then the next best thing is books, which my Jeffrey Epstein books are in the other room right now. But like books are full of good information, and especially when it's a journalist writing a book, they put all their sources in the back of the book. So when you find people that are citing their sources, books can be a wealth of information. And the premier book about Epstein right now is One Nation Under Blackmail by Whitney Webb, and it's dense. I've read it like 3 times, and I still have to take notes and look things up because it's just so full of information. But news reporting, you kind of have to double check. But ultimately, it's like for regular people that are just going about living their lives, it's easy for it to feel like, oh, it's hearsay, or like, oh, we think that, but how do we know? But it's like, no, we know because like we have had a whole network of journalists sourcing this information for a long time on the beat as stuff came out, as police investigations were going on, as court documents were being filed. We have journalists that actually got a hold of like Epstein's black book. I know the guy that actually got the original black book and released it to the public, including and also like the flight logs. So it's hard. Like that's why we have journalists, is to kind of source everything and make sure it's real information and figure out where the information came from. But the journalists that study the story, we are all very much in agreement. All the journalists know what happened. And we all know that when Cash comes out and tells us it's a hoax, that he's lying. And there's some stories where it's not that clear cut, but the Epstein one is just, it's clear as day. And it's, you know, I think there's a couple reasons for it, but a big part is that it's an operation that got set up before computers. Like Epstein built his whole network in the 80s and 90s. And so it was never designed to withstand the scrutiny of like 2024 internet. And so now there's just so many loose ends out there because people never imagined that we would be able to read through their text messages or check their email servers, or like that flight logs would go online or whatever it is. That there's just a lot of holes in their sort of like security because they just didn't anticipate where information would go.
Yeah, I see. Well, how many on the idea of like journalists and, you know, aggregating data and putting out the right information, how many people do you think are out there now that are leveraging all of this sort of conspiracy, or whether it's conspiracy or real truths, for their own benefit? Like, because it's starting to become somewhat of a,
Well said. Yeah. It's an industry.
yeah. So now, you know, I'm not pointing towards you, for example, or but like these people, Candace Owens, you, Nick Fuente, all these people are in this category of sort of truth seeking or telling their spin on whatever the conspiracy or idea or thing is. How much of it do you think, not again, not those people, not you guys that I named are doing this, but how many people out there do you notice or do you see? And we'll get into the conversation about the assassination of Charlie Kirk and, you know, this whole, you know, is Israel conspiracy behind it? Because that one's interesting to me, and a lot of people's reactions are interesting to me. But
super interesting.
How many people are out there do you think that are just like, well, I can get a bunch of likes and views on social media and make some money?
A fair number, and that's such a good question. And I actually think that the best answer to that question is all of them. all of us, myself included.
Yeah.
And the reason that I think it's best to think of it that way is because it's true, is that the new media has a ton of advantages. Like a regular person can make a difference now. You're not bought out and paid for. You're not part of some big media organization that's going to, give you talking points. Like this new media where regular people can do journalism and share it on the internet and make a living at it and, reach millions of people. That's awesome in so many ways. But part of the trade-off of that freedom that we've acquired is we have less security of information, because now anyone is free to share information. And because we're not parts of these big networks, because we're not controlled by the establishment, we need to make money. And that's just the way it is. And there are some people that do it as a side hustle, and they purposely try to avoid all money making. And that's very respectable. And I totally dig that. But ultimately, like if you want, the Candace Owens show, if you want her to be able to, it's a load of work. It's a full-time job. And so ultimately, everyone in these industries, they have to make money one way or another. And that's just a balance that has to be played individually by each person. And so now we all have to judge, like, is this person reliable? Is this person trustworthy? Would this person, admit they were wrong or keep pushing in order to get views and money? And you kind of just have to make those judgment calls for yourself about who you're watching. And for me personally, one of the best indicators that I'm watching someone that's high integrity is people that admit that they're wrong and retract stories or go back and say, hey, I said this thing on my last show and that's not true. I got it wrong. Here's a correction. Those sorts of things are really good indicators, because for me, having met a lot of these people in this like journalism industry, is the difference is usually the ego. Is that there's people that are like have to be right because they see their brand as being like, how many things was I right about? And that's super dangerous, because you're going to get shit wrong, and we need to trust you to admit that and change your mind. And there's certain people out there that will just die on a hill because they can't deal with like the shame or whatever it is of having to admit that they were wrong. And so that's also for people in the industry, for people doing the truth seeking, that's like an important reminder of it's okay to be wrong, and it's okay to be humbled and to not know everything. So I've kind of purposely put myself in a corner of the space where I'm like, I try to not call myself a journalist, because I'm not really breaking news stories. I'm just like a dude researching things, learning things. I'm just kind of like a bro that's trying to figure out what the is going on. Because I'm not like some authoritative source, and most people aren't these days. And I think there's pros and cons to that. Like, it's nice to have experts. It's good to have trained journalists that are good at this shit. But it's also good to have regular people kind of giving their opinions too. And a lot of people aren't actually looking for the hardcore journalism. They're really looking for entertainment that also tells them what's going on. So it's just this like wide open field now, where we used to sort of have this one industry with this one path with one controller at the top, and it just fractured into a million pieces. And it's like we all have to pick and choose our own information now, which is why so many people don't know what the f- going on.
Yeah. It gets all crazy. It gets all convoluted, because my whole fear is like when they can create, like for example, I've seen AI videos of me selling products that I'm not selling. People,
Exactly.
my own friends will literally hit me up and be like, yo, is that stuff really working? I'm like, bro, that's not, they just took a clip and they made it some
Yup.
other shit. And so like my fear is that it gets to the point where AI is just like, a Karen Eel. They just, Ian Carroll, right? Let's say reverse your name and they made it some other guy and you were saying
Yup.
completely other shit, but they like, you believe that it was a human doing the same thing that you're doing, but in a different light.
And we're like already there. Like we're already at that point. And that's where it gets really complicated, because we need some amount of control, some amount of like right now, the system that the whole internet is being held up by is just by like us all knowing that you have to double check that you're at the right account. Because there's all these fake TikToks of you, there's all these fake TikToks of me, there's fake X profiles for days just impersonating us, stealing our content, spreading it around. Not to mention the ones that are actually like AI fakes that are, selling shit or whatever. And it's like we all know that's a threat right now, and we're just like basically holding it together by just knowing that I have to make sure I'm just at the right account. And if that account puts something out, that's from Ian or that's from Brad.
Yeah.
Um,
Who are some of the people that you like their information, that you look to, that you follow, or that you engage with, that you like who are some of the real truth seekers in your opinion?
it's a it's a wide range, and there's certain people I go to for certain specific things. Like for Epstein stuff, I'm a huge fan of Whitney Webb, who wrote those books I was talking about.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Ryan Dawson. I'm a huge fan of this ex guy named Champagne Joshi. I'm blanking on his name right now. So it's like there's a bunch of sort of like topic specific people. But then I'm a huge fan of like Tucker and Candace. I'm a huge fan of James Lee. But honestly, I don't actually, I try to not consume very much content. I don't really watch any content, and I don't consume my information from content. So like when I'm saying I like Tucker and Candace and James Lee, for example, I'm not watching them to get the information so much as I am to keep up with them as a part of the news. Because right now, what Candace is doing is the news. And so it's like, I need to know what she did on her show last night, because that is going to change the whole conversation that's going on with Charlie Kirk. But like, I, as a person that's reporting on things and like trying to figure out what's going on, it's for me, I need to go to the original source. So like if I see a good Instagram reel about like some idea, I need to not just like stop there, but I need to go and like look up what that dude was talking about and then read the article he was talking about and like dig deeper. And so usually I'm just kind of like digging on shit and not actually looking at content, because it just takes up so much time.
Yeah, I get it.
That being said, it's like I'm still aware of everyone, you know, in the industry. Harrison Smith is my boy too. He got caught up in this Israel conversation in a huge way in this one. He's super cool. I trust him a ton.
Yeah. So what is your take on this, the conspiracy around Israel being behind this Charlie Kirk thing? Because I saw Nick recently came out and was like, well, we can't always jump and say it's always Israel.
Yeah, Nick's
in
coming
every
out hard against it
in every situation.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, obviously, someone like him who has historically sort of been in that sort of that mindset where it is these people, it is this state. But I think I saw his piece on it, and it was like it almost kind of screams like the reverse of, whenever you spoke about something Israel or Jewish related, it's like you're an anti-Semite, and then the anti-Semite thing started to like hurt less and less, feel less and less, because it was used so much. It's kind of the stance he's taken with the Israel thing, being like, well, if we just come out and say it's always Israel, then we're going to be like, the boy who cried wolf, or it's going to be the same thing where it's just like we're just trying to search for something that isn't there because we want it to be there.
Yep. And it's a smart move on his part too, being like the guy that was so canceled for being Israel, and now he's so much more high profile because everyone's tuning into him now. It's like a smart move, regardless of, what you think is true, just to like pump the brakes and be cautious. And that's a thing that like Tucker and Candace and Dave Smith, these other guys that are like directly in the story that were friends with Charlie, they're all on that same train of like they're talking about Israel, but they're not saying that Israel did the hit. They're not saying that at all. They're just like looking at all the things. I'm a little different, where I was not scared to come out and kind of voice my suspicions right away. And for me, it's like right now we don't have any evidence that's like hard evidence that ties Israel to anything about the shooting for the most part. But part of the reason why I do what I do the way I do it is like when something big happens in the world, like a plane flies into one of the Twin Towers, if you don't know anything about how the world works, you don't have any context to understand what the just happened. And if you have a little bit of context about how the world works, then you might think you know what happened, but you might not even understand all these other layers. If you don't know how intelligence agencies work, you would never realize that the CIA might have known about that in advance. If you didn't know how terrorism works, you might not know how terrorist cells get recruited. You might not know that the CIA actually first funded Al-Qaeda and gave them weapons and training. And so there's like, the more you know about how everything has worked in the past and all the context, the more likely you are to sort of see what's really likely going on. And so when Charlie gets shot, the first thing going through my mind is this is the biggest political assassination in American history since JFK. Like since JFK, MLK, RFK, that era in the 60s, there has not been a more high profile political assassination.
Yeah.
And anytime you have a political assassination, your first thought, and real law enforcement agencies, like their first thought is this a state sponsored attack? Is this a government, like an intelligence agency assassinating someone? And JFK is the perfect example of like, they try to pass it off as a lone nut, but by now we all know that there was clearly some amount of intelligence agencies, CIA, maybe Mossad, definitely organized crime. It's like, it's complicated. And so when Charlie gets shot, my first thing is like the chances, if you don't know anything at all about any of the facts or any of the evidence, the chances of that being an intelligence agency are higher than if it was a lone nut, just like on the nature of what has happened. When you start to look at the evidence, it's like, what does the evidence line up with? And if you only listen to the government and didn't think very hard about it, then it would start to lean towards lone nut that's like, just hated Charlie Kirk. But you don't have to think very hard about all the evidence that's coming out to realize that like things are not adding up. And I think a lot of people get that feeling. Like right now, TikTok is just filled with funny fucking TikToks about the letter, the text messages going back and forth that are like, clearly no Gen Z kid wrote that letter.
Yeah, vehicle and all that shit.
Yeah,
You're
it's like, come on,
bro.
bitch. But there's way more than just that going on. And that is where I start to suspect that we're dealing with something much bigger than just some crazy kid shooting at Charlie. And the moment that you're suspecting something more organized than that, like some sort of operation, you're very likely talking about intelligence agencies just because of how powerful Charlie was president material. Charlie was 100% going to be president of the United States. And Turning Point USA is the largest grassroots youth political organization the world has ever seen. He was so pivotally important in the political world that like it is not like people are coming out and saying you're so horrible for even suggesting that Israel had anything to do with that. It's like, well, or we just have context about like what's really going on in the world. And um and man, my boy Harrison got so caught up in it because a month before it happened, he had tweeted that one of Charlie Kirk's friends, unnamed source, had personally told him that Charlie had said that he was afraid that if he went against Israel, they would try to kill him. And so Harrison had tweeted that a month ago. And then unfortunately, Charlie gets killed and everyone starts looking at that tweet like, wait, what? And Harrison re-reported on it. He double checked it. He's like, I stand by it. I double checked with the guy. He stands by it. He's Charlie Kirk's friend. And then Max Blumenthal in the Gray Zone comes out with an article that has like 3 and then 4 and then 5 sources that are corroborating it from inside of Charlie Kirk's camp, different sources than what Harrison had. And then Ron Unz comes out and says that someone on Charlie Kirk's team said that they all kind of suspected Israel too. And it's like suddenly there's like all this swirling conversation around it because if you're serious, you understand that Mossad is the best assassinators in the world. They're the most assassinating people on the planet. And we just got done with a whole year of like watching them celebrate assassinating hundreds of people at once with pagers and like assassinating leaders of other countries in all these elaborate ways. Like it's not a secret in the intelligence world that the Israeli intelligence services are super good at killing people. And so it's like you start to put all these pieces together. It's like, why is there an old Jewish dude causing a scene and trying to get arrested and saying that he shot Charlie? Like that's super fucking weird. Do you know about that guy?
Yeah, the bald head guy. Yeah.
Yeah, and he just happened to be at 9/11 and to call in a bomb threat after Boston Marathon. It's just like that's a little weird. Why would this dude be doing that? That doesn't make any sense if it's like some lone tranny nut job on the roof being friends with some 70-year-old Jewish dude that's like trying to help him get away. But if you're dealing with an intelligence agency operation, it makes perfect sense. That's exactly what you might see, right?
You're talking about a diversion to allow a gunman to get away.
Yeah. And he actually, that guy, George Zinn, gave a statement to the Daily Mail that is published on the Daily Mail right now, where he just straight up said, my goal was to help the shooter escape. And I think he's probably like, the story is probably as though like, I didn't like Charlie Kirk. And so freedom of speech, I wanted whoever killed him to get away, but I'm just a random guy. Which is like, yeah, you find me like, ask like, shoot someone next to someone else and see if their first response is to like come up with some plot to like get arrested to help the person get away. It's like,
in the moment, you mean? In the moment,
not how that works at all.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right. And so there's just a bunch of like, when you have context of how the world works and how politics work and how all these deep state kind of things work, and then you apply a little common sense to what we're seeing, I have a lot of questions. So I'm not of the mind that I know for sure who did it. I don't know who did it or how it was done. I don't even know where the shot came from. I'm not convinced that the shot even was taken from the rooftop like they're saying. Like I don't know much about the case, but one thing I do know is that Candace is not going to stop until she feels like she's found out who it was, and she was a better friend to Charlie than just about anyone else on this planet. As you can tell right now, if you log into Twitter and see who's actually like, speaking up for him.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of faith that Charlie had a lot of very intelligent friends that know how to seek the truth, and he had a very intelligent wife that knows what she's doing. And I suspect that we have a good chance of actually getting somewhere with figuring out what really happened.
I mean, it seems like it's just going down the route of it's this Tyler guy, and it's
Oh,
you
that's
know,
certainly what they're pushing.
yeah.
They're like, I mean, I'm worried that he's gonna accidentally commit suicide in prison, because that's sort of the MO right now. And there's even some theories coming out that like I don't really know how to vet that he might actually be an intelligence asset. Like he went to a school. Mormons, first of all, are loved by the CIA. They love to recruit Mormons because they don't drink, don't smoke, don't do drugs, don't party. Straight edge people are great for CIA people. And he went to a school where it's known that they recruit a lot, and he like was a 4.0 student, but he went for one semester and then dropped out. And then just like he was chronically online, but basically has no online identity, that he has no social media pages. No one's found any like YouTube channels or like Twitters or anything like that, which is like kind of weird. So I don't doubt that they're going to put him on the stand and pin it all on him, or at least try to. But I wonder if the public is ever going to buy it, like ever.
But like even buying it, like, do you think that part of not buying it is also just the overall climate that like has been created?
That's a good question.
You could point towards all the other things you just pointed towards to be like, well, it almost like leads to that assumption that, oh, these people or this intelligence agency,
It
that
does.
even if it's not, people are still gonna just be like, yeah, but it was.
Yep. And that's kind of the argument.
Because you said the tweet that Harrison guy, I mean, I haven't looked at that guy's Twitter profile or handle, but is a lot of what he says sort of anti-Israel anyways?
He's certainly not pro-Israel. Um, but he's pretty reasonable. But that's the thing, is that we all have to judge the sources for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And I think that some people, like if you lean more right, like so he's a reporter on Infowars, and so it'd be really easy if you're on the left, you're already like, oh, this guy's a nut job. I can't trust a single thing he says, right? And so it's like everyone's in this impossible position where everyone has to judge every single source for themselves and try to decide if they trust the person or not. And like someone in my position, I get a lot more information because I know Harrison personally. I've met his family, I've met his friends, I've hung out with him, had beers with him. So like I know his integrity a little more, and I know like I got background there. But regular people don't know that. And it's like, how do you know who to trust and like who has integrity and who doesn't? And when it comes back to what you're kind of pointing out, is that like, what if it's like it's possible that it's all a bunch of coincidences and that people are looking for conspiracies just because we all are suspicious? And like, you're right, dude. You're totally right. Because at this point, like, we don't trust the government about anything at all. They could come out and tell us the straight up truth. They could tell us the sky is blue, and people on Twitter would be like, "The sky's not blue, bro." And I think that speaks to just how many lies they've told us and to how little trust there is. Because in this world now, we've been talking about a bunch of parts of this. In a world where anyone can get online and pretend to speak truth or try to speak truth, like the information's wide open. AI is in here everything up, and you can have fake people and you can have fake everything. Who knows? And then we have this history of lying where it's like there is no truth anymore. And I can't help but wonder if that's on purpose, because there's really no solution going forwards other than the FBI reestablishing trust, the government reestablishing trust, because ultimately it all comes back to trust. We didn't think of it that way when it was like there's a newspaper and you get it and it's on your front door. But ultimately it's like, why do you trust that newspaper? Like, do you know who runs that newspaper? Do you know who paid them? Like, how do you know to trust that newspaper? But now we just get that way more obviously because it's like this random dude on Twitter or this random video that might be AI generated. And but like truth has always been a decision of, do I trust this person or thing or information?
Yeah.
And now that we have so many more factors up the trust, and so everyone's suspicious of everyone else, and everyone's fighting, and the sides all hate each other, and the government's lying all the time. It's like now no one knows who to trust. And until the government reestablishes trust, it's like everything will be a conspiracy, whether they like it or not.
Yeah. It's so hard because it's just like a bad relationship. Once the trust is gone, it never works out.
Bingo. Yeah, it is kind of like that.
There's no coming back from it. So, dude,
Yup.
here's a conspiracy theory. What if it's just like, what if it's the reptile people and
Now we're talking, dog. Now we are talking.
and Israel's been their scapegoat the whole time, and they've allowed Netanyahu to spout all these things so that they could blame them the whole time, and in reality, it's just the reptile people, bro.
Dude, I know a few people that are down with this theory.
I'm just saying it, but it just sounds like, because the whole conversation seems to go back to like it's Israel controlling our government, right? Because of the how they're bought in sort of Congress and all these seats, and the money that's given from billionaires to politicians. And I'm always like, well, what if it's like the other way around? What if that's like just the payback?
Yep. Well, there is also like, here's the thing about conspiracies and about like information in general is there's so much like texture and complexity where it's easy to say, like, for example, the military industrial complex rules the world. It's like, yeah, that's pretty
obvious.
much true in general. Like we all get that. But then you can get granular and you can be like, well, there's, 5 big military industrial complex companies. Are they all equally evil? And then it's like, okay, but then there's all these little contracts. And then there's all these people that work there. And then it's like, well, they're not all working for the same goals. And they're like trying to take market share from them. And they're just like, evil pieces of shit. There's just all this complexity. And so when you talk about like the Israel-US relationship, there's a lot on the table. And just because, and like maybe that dude in the Israeli government has blackmail on a bunch of us. But at the same time, if you're in the CIA and you're doing some sketchy black operation and you can pin it on Israel, it's like, hey, everybody already hates Israel. Let's just make it look like Israel did this operation. That's an opportunity for me to win. So there's like, everyone is their own individual playing their own game for their own desires. They're all trying to get where they're trying to go. And that just winds up with this incredibly complex actual reality. It's like, you can't say the American military is all evil, even though we went and like up Iraq for, 15 years or whatever. Because there's a whole bunch of soldiers in there that were great people that were trying to do right, Then there was also a bunch of soldiers like smuggling drugs. So it's just important to remember that it's all super granular, and that's where you get the context of like, no one's saying that all Jewish people are, an evil cabal running the world. And no one's even really trying to say that like all of Israel is one thing controlling the US government. It's like, it's all individuals and it's groups and it's organizations and foundations and corporations. So it's just complicated. You never really get a handle on all of it. Personally, when I look at it, I just see a whole lot more of control flowing from them to us as opposed to from us to them. Like, I don't see Israel fighting our wars or like funding our healthcare or, like giving us money.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. But,
Right?
but like that, then you start talking about the money that, like I'll see Ben Shapiro get on and talk to like at the Breakfast Club, talk to like Charlemagne. And it's like,
Yeah.
he's like, all the money actually comes back here. So then the conversation is like, well, the money that we give them ends up back here. So is it just not back here? Wanting the issue to be there.
A lot of the money does. Not all the money. Ben is good with his words. He's a smart guy. He's a smart cookie. But it is nuanced. Like, as one example, similar to that, is like everyone cries about AIPAC, how AIPAC buys our Congress out on behalf of Israel, as though like the millions of dollars that AIPAC is lobbying this guy, as though it like was going into his pocket. And it's like, that's not how that works. It's not like AIPAC is giving them like money to buy a house with. AIPAC is giving money to their campaign to get them elected. But then once they're elected, then they can get like all these deals. They can trade it on inside information. They make all these connections. They get rich because they have been elected. But AIPAC's not like, at least theoretically, they're not literally giving them money. So there is a lot of nuance to this shit. But that doesn't mean that the patterns don't prevail, right? It's like, pattern recognition is a very important survival skill. And I think that part of like the core reason why Israel has the upper hand in this relationship on just like an ideological, like a bigger picture level, is because they have a strong sense of nationalism. It's like Americans don't really have a strong sense of nationalism. We don't have a strong sense of like, we are all in this together. America first, like us over them, which is not necessarily a good thing because nationalism can lead to a bunch of evil. But Israeli people and Jewish people have the strongest sense of nationalism in the world. Like, obviously, like they're all looking out for each other and they're all concerned with the future of the Jewish people for good reason. And so Israel's just really good at working together for common goals, you know, for their own betterment. And Americans, not so much. We're really good at fighting over slop, and getting into arguments and bullshit and thinking that half of us are evil.
It does seem like that part is also by design. Like, because certainly right
A
after
little bit.
Charlie, yeah, right after Charlie's assassinated, our president's basically like, the left are crazy and they're trying to
Dude.
kill us.
Yeah. And they stoked it so hard. And like, again, you look at the president and his whole entourage stoking this like race hatred and like party hatred of left versus right. It's like, dude, look at their donors. This Trump presidency is just funded by big tech that is just right there at the door, ready to bring in all these technologies to surveil us. And all they need is a little bit of civil war or a little bit of rioting or just a little bit of like racial tension to just flare over. And then it's like, oh, we got to send in the National Guard. Like, oh, we can't do this hate speech thing. And so it's like no surprise that Trump and his administration are stoking the thing that will give all of their donors what their donors have been slobbering over for years. So it's like, I'm just a big believer that information, like, there's a lot of ideas for solutions and maybe some of them would work. Like maybe voting will help. Who knows? Maybe like writing your congressman would help. But one thing I know will help is information. Is like the more we all think a little harder and actually like learn how the world works, and think for ourselves and don't just like blindly accept what they give you, that makes a more informed public and that makes it harder for them to, trick you every time.
Yeah, that was the thing during COVID that I really recognized, like the critical thinking skill, like being able to see something and go, okay, well, maybe it's not exactly what I'm being told. Maybe there's something
Bingo.
else, there's some reason there. But that seems to be the thing that, like, no matter how many times we go in this circle, people just will never do. And there's just specific people who will, but the mass majority just won't.
Yep. Yeah. And I always wonder if that's like something that's just in us, that's just how we are, that 90% of people are just dumb NPCs, or like, I don't want to think that. I'm like, I was raised by teachers and I kind of came from a teaching background. And I'm like really of the belief that you can teach anyone to kind of do anything, sort of. Like, we all have a lot of potential in us. It's just that most of us are like fed poison from birth and in kind of shitty families with bad education, with up opportunity and no economy. And so it's like most people are just kind of like screwed in that regard. And most people don't have this like drive in them to break out of that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's like maybe we are just kind of doomed because we're humans.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always try to remind myself, especially in this job, and I said this earlier, is like the job is not to save the world. You're never going to save the fucking world. We're never all going to be brilliant. Like, we're never all going to be pretty. We're never all going to be healthy. We're like, the point of like humanity is free will, right? And the moment that humanity has free will, you're going to have people doing dumb. And sometimes the dumb shit is cool too. Like sometimes dumb shit is super fun. But we're never all going to be like that's the point of having free will, free choice, is that you're allowed to make bad choices. You're allowed to have stupid ideas. You're allowed to do what you want for the most part. Just don't kill people or hurt people.
Yeah. It seems like being jacked or in shape seems to be like one of the best things to combat against it.
100. It is 100%. It's the best way to combat it. And it's one of the best litmus tests for who's going to be fucking based. Like, hands down. And so when I lived in that liberal town during COVID, and it was like I was kind of getting red pilled, and it was before I'd made any content, and everything shut down, but the gym that I was going to was dope, and the owners were not buying any of it. And the gym became the safe haven. It was the only place that we were all allowed to go. Everything else was closed, but we just went to the gym, right? You know the story. You were
Sounds
the
like
story,
me. That
dog.
sounds like me. I did that in
Bingo,
California.
right? Gym owners across the country saved lives during COVID, dude. Those gym owners are responsible for me being here right now. Shout out to Training Grounds in Bellingham, Washington. They're the best gym up there. And like, if they didn't create that space, if they weren't holding that for everyone, like everyone would have gone insane because
Yeah.
everyone that's like, once you start doing the work to get healthy and to get fit, you just it changes you because
Yeah.
like you can't fake it. That's the thing about bodybuilding and health and fitness is that you are your own resume. Like there's no faking the work. Like
Yeah.
even if you use steroids and shit, it's like there's still no faking the work to get where you're going,
Yeah.
and to maintain where you're going, which is like so cool. It just like strips away the bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, man, because I remember I went to court like 8 times for this whole COVID thing in California.
No shit.
Yeah, bro, because I kept
Damn,
my gym
dude.
open, and I remember there was just, like, lines out the door. It's exactly what you said. It was, like, the one safe
Yep.
haven that was like, "Okay, this kinda feels normal." And you're right, the mentality that someone builds in that sort of space is a little bit more of an independent mind, I think is
Yep.
the biggest thing, because you recognize it is up to you to, it sounds silly, but, like, to get stronger. It's up to you to get better. It's up to you to feel better.
100%. And it's your journey too. You inevitably learn that like you're yourself and you're never going to look like that person. You're never going to look like that person. You know, you're dealing with your own shit, your own problems, your own, strengths and weaknesses. And it just inherently plus like there's just this like we're talking about it like it kind of swings you right wing or left wing or whatever. But like realistically, it just makes you more human. Like
Yeah.
humans were meant to be healthy. Humans weren't meant to be fat and like sick all the time, right? And so I think in a certain way, it just balances you. And once you're
Yeah.
balanced, you can think so much more rationally. Like you're not stressed and anxious and depressed and all these other like mental health problems that so many Americans struggle with. Is like just a good bit of exercise every day and week is like that cures most of our problems.
Yeah. So besides that aspect of like, self betterment, how do you think someone can better navigate this new landscape of social media and
Good
they're
question.
wrong, I'm right, and how does someone? Because like at the end of the day, we could talk about this forever. Talk about conspiracies. Talk about like who's right, who killed this person, who killed that person. But like to have a better overall life and to like be able to discern information better and to actually come up with your own sort of ideas instead of just going like following the crowd, following the masses. What are the other aspects that you think a human should focus on?
I think that's such a good question, dude. I think the most important part has to do with how certain you are of things. Um, because the problem isn't when like the problem is not when Charlie Kirk is having a spirited debate with someone that disagrees with him. Like that's good. That's a good thing. The problem is not disagreement. The problem is not which information are you reading. The problem is not like hate speech. The problem is when people get fucking emotional and start treating it like it's the end of the world, right? Like you're going to kill everyone if you say that. Like you're an evil person for thinking that, right? The problem is when emotions get involved. And usually that's because someone in the conversation thinks that they're smarter than everyone else and that they know what's really true and they're certain that they're right. And that's most Americans today. Like most Americans, most of us have been trained to think like no, I get what's really going on out here. And like that, those people on that side, they're ignorant. They're so racist. They're dumb. They think that Trump's a good guy or like they think Trump's a racist and look at them. And so you just get so in this mold of thinking in terms of categories, like you're a Democrat or you're gay or you're this or that. It's like, or you're an individual that has your own thoughts and you should ask them what their ideas are and have a conversation and learn what their individual perspective is. And if you stop thinking like you know everything and start thinking like, do you really like maybe you should just consider that everyone else might be right and you might be wrong. Like you're not God. Because the thing that does, even if you were right, doesn't matter. Because what that does is that takes the emotion out of it. That stops you from being like, how could you think that? Right? You don't get emotional if you're like, I don't know, maybe I'm fucking, it's just not so serious, right? It's not the end of the world if you think that, like, you know, Israel killed Charlie and you think that UFOs killed Charlie and you think that a lone gunman, it's like, who cares, dog? Have a cool conversation about it. Go make some food, have dinner, get over it. It's like, there's so many ways that this media environment is not on purpose. It just has evolved to all be based on attention. And it's like all about getting your attention, getting you to pay more attention and to get more invested. And what that means is to get you emotional and to get you angry and to get you afraid. And that's just how you give them more dollars. That's how you give them more view time and more ad watch
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Or
And
buy
so
more products or whatever it is.
exactly, right? Is like the problem that they sell you is always an emotional disturbance, whether it's fear, anger, guilt, shame, whatever it is. And then they always sell you a solution, whether it's clothes or food or information or ideals or whatever it is. And so it's like my solution, and I think the best one for everyone, other than getting healthy in your body, getting healthy in your mind means chilling the out and not being so emotional and not thinking you know everything and not trying to turn everything into the end of the world. Because then you can just be friends with people. Then you can just be a nice person. And then shit starts to be really fun and you make friends and you have positive experiences and you like live a fulfilling life because you're not busy hating everyone all the time. And it becomes a positive feedback loop.
Yeah. Well, brother, this has been one of those good positive moments for me in regards to you. And it was actually really a pleasure talking to you, for real.
Dude, right back at you, man. Yeah, you're really cool. I appreciate it. And I am going to make it out to LA at some point. We'll sit down for real.
Yeah, I want to have you on for real, definitely. And bro, I appreciate the work that you're doing. I appreciate it's always so much better talking to people, obviously in person, but even like this, right? Like, cause I've watched enough of your content. I've seen enough of the things that you've said, the conspiracy theories or the facts, the truths, whatever, however someone wants to discern that information.
Yeah.
But it is always a big difference to talk to someone directly. And everything you just kind of ended the conversation with, I truly can like co-sign and be like, that is the key, right? Because whether or not you're always right or I'm always right, that's not even the point. The point is that's not real, because things do change and opinions and the world is constantly ebbing and flowing. But talking to someone directly and understanding someone directly and allowing that discourse to be there without it being like controlled or consorted or some sort of entities, you can't say this, you can't say that. My biggest fear is that it just ends up in a way where this moment, like this ability, is like slowly taken away from us. That's my biggest fear.
100%.
Because then like I couldn't see you as someone that, if I just knew you from what someone else told me about you, I would go, oh, he's this guy or he's that guy. But having this conversation with you is like, you're just a human trying to figure things out like everyone else.
Exactly.
And so, bro, I appreciate the work that you do, and I appreciate your time today, and I would love to actually sit down and have a real face-to-face conversation. So thank you so much for giving me your time. And yeah, you're awesome, bro. Keep it up, for real.
Thanks, man.
And if you ever need me, I'll come. I got to come out to Austin sometime soon because I got to do more stem cells for my bootleg ass pinky. But yo, I appreciate your time, brother. Thank you.
Totally, my pleasure, dog.
All right, guys, every Tuesday, 11 o'clock. I love you guys. I'll see you next week. I'm sorry I missed last week. There was a lot of shit going on, but it's been an absolute pleasure to be back. I will see you guys next week. Subscribe to the podcast. Love you guys.